thing that I value more than anything is three things. It is authenticity, it is transparency, and it is vulnerability.
Appreciate you for being here. Let's get into the video. It feels really weird to be here again doing this. I haven't done podcasts. I've done content, but like nothing formal like this. So I guess long time no see. I'm David from R.Y.S.E movement. I help people raise your standards everywhere to create your fuck yes life. And this is the R.Y.S.E podcast. I don't exactly know what it's going to be anymore. I don't exactly know what this container is going to be for. There's a lot of other creative stuff that I really want to do, and I have been doing over on TikTok and in shorts and stuff like that, mainly hyperfixating about sleep token, linguistics, hypnosis, Carl Jung as well. This is cool. I just got my copy of the reader's edition of the Red Book. I can't wait to dive into it. I'm so excited. But I'm a little bit nervous about the shadow work and the symbolism and the signs that present itself anytime that I dive into Jung. It's always a deep, introspective exploration of the unconscious and of the shadow. And if you guys are new here and you haven't heard the podcast and you're here because of the sleep token stuff or whatever, what's up? I'm Dave. I've been a coach for a long time, been a student in consciousness for a long ass time. I'm a fiance, a father of two amazing daughters. I cannot believe how old they are, 11 and almost 8. It's weird at the moment. It's so strange. Like, I am ending so many old cycles, it's not even funny. And I'm about to begin an entire new cycle as I revamp and restart my business, dive heavily back into that, into the podcasting space again. There's some collaborations that I'm working on at the moment for the near future, which I'm really excited about. Honestly, I hope that I can pull off one of them because it's very in line with sleep token and, the mythology and Carl Jung and linguistics and all that sort of good stuff. So I'm hoping that we can pull that one off and find a time soon. But pretty much where I wanted to go from here is to give a bit of a recap, because the last time that I really gave an explanation of what's going on with me and what's present, I was going through burnout again. Last year, I tried to send it as hard as I could, being medicated and getting help from psychiatrists and psychologists. And like, I was doing as much introspective work as I could in order to become this new version of who I wanted to become. However, I was so busy trying to appease everyone else instead of figuring out exactly what I wanted to do. Hence the lack of content, hence the lack of formality. And I just thought, fuck it, I'm just going to have a break. And that break was really nice. That break turned into being a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Realistically, I planned on having a break at the end of the year when I finished up working at the previous gym that I was working as a PT, and I took some time off from the podcast and, content making and everything. Went to New Zealand for a 2-week amazing holiday. Spent so much time with Rachel's family, and I really felt like they welcomed me into theirs. I always felt like an outsider, even in my own family, been that, the weird black sheep, doing everything that they don't really agree with, that they don't understand. My life is not the norm by any stretch of the means. So getting accepted into their family was really wholesome, and like, it allowed me to take my mask off even further and to really show who I was, which was widely received. And I'd never had that before. Anytime I'd taken my mask off and gone, oh, okay, cool, like, this is all I am, it was kind of met with like, put that back on, don't do that. Whereas I felt very accepted, very nurtured. It was wonderful. By the way, I thought I'd dress up nicely for the podcast. So if you're listening to audio, I'm wearing a forest animal and mushroom shirt. I don't know. I found it in Maya. It's cool. It is what it is. So since that time when I was in New Zealand, lots of meditation, lots of breath work, and, just being as present as I could with, the family and everything else. I was talking to Rach. I'm like, I don't think that I'm going to go back into my business just yet. I think I need some time off. I need to reevaluate who I am, what I want to do, and where I want to take this thing moving forward. Especially because there was a bunch of clients that I was working with that weren't doing the work. They weren't doing the thing that I was asking them to. Being a coach, I was setting a plan, getting them to do the plan was like pulling teeth. It was like I was the one that was having to do it, and which is a perfect reflection of what was going on inside of me. That incongruence inside of me, incongruence in my messaging, incongruence in pretty much everything. And it was directly related to my results that were not up to scratch, which is a good lesson for you guys as well. If anything is going wrong in your life, the first thing you have to look at is go look in the mirror. Go have a good hard look in the mirror and go, I am fucking up somewhere. I am destroying something. I'm being a roadblock. I'm being a bottleneck. What stupid thing am I doing that I have control over and I want to do something about, and then create a plan. Get out of your own way. But before you do that, figure out what resources and intelligence you have to call upon so that you can make the right decision and move yourself forward. I was my own bottleneck, as we all are. We're our own worst enemies at the best of times. And so when I got out of my way, jumped back into more shadow work, more meditation, introspection, a couple of therapy sessions and stuff, just to figure out what was actually going on underneath. So there's some stuff that's happening in the behind the scenes in our personal life that I'm still probably not ever going to talk about, but that's coming to a close at the moment. And it definitely feels like, it's ironic that Sleep Token's emergence went as crazy as it did. And it's like 40 million listens on friggin' Spotify and stuff like that, because I've had that on repeat constantly. And then there's specific lyrics inside of it that says, come on now, come out from underneath who you were. And I very much feel like that's me. Like obviously perception is projection. I'm projecting onto the band and I'm getting my own message and my own interpretations out of it. But it's really reminiscent of all the work that I've done on myself psychologically. I used to be so broken, and not really broken, but like I felt so fractured, so fragmented, so incongruent from all these personality parts and hang-ups and trauma and all these things that were in my unconscious mind that were just not letting me be and do the things that I wanted to do, the things I wanted to be, and have the results that I really wanted. And that's kind of what it's so important to continue doing the work. Continue doing shadow work, keep looking at all of your problems and your behaviors and your social hang-ups and, the weird idiosyncrasies that you have that make people uncomfortable, especially if you're neurodivergent. If you're neurodivergent and you do all these things that you're not aware of, call upon a resource of a close friend or a family member or something like that to give you a heads up when you're not making people feel comfortable, when you're doing things that are so outside of accepted behavior. Because a lot of the time, like, we just go through life as this meat suit that's being controlled by a brain instead of being embodied. And the moment that you can slow down and be present and call for a bit of feedback, then you can start actually doing something about it. You don't have to sit with the nonsense that you're faced with every single day. So the main thing that I went through recently was embodying the king archetype. And I created this whole ritual around it unconsciously. It just kind of came through me. So if you haven't read the book King, Lover, Warrior, Magician by Douglas Gillette and Robert Moore, I strongly recommend doing so. Phenomenal read for all blokes to understand what you need to do psychologically to become a whole being, to individuate. Much like Jung talks about integrating the opposites, reducing the amount of fractured aspects of your psyche. It's really important to do. However, I have a caveat. There's this massive push in personal development spaces and like the alpha men space to become a king. You cannot become a king, in my experience at least. You cannot become a king unless you have fully embodied your lover and your warrior archetypes. They are the pillars. They are the opposite polarities that hold that container for the king to sit in perfectly. And then the magician is the manifester. The magician is the one who uses words beautifully, poetically to create and make manifest in the real world. The king, though, if you're not embodied in the actual archetype of the king, you are, in fact, the shadow king. And the shadow king is the tyrant or the weakling. And I would oscillate between the two. I'd be like, I feel like I'm in this king energy. I feel like I'm, embodied in it. However, I wasn't. There was not enough of an embodiment perspective from the warrior or from a standards perspective from the lover for me to sit comfortably as the king. And that's why I would abdicate my responsibilities as the king. I would fuck off on my phone. I would be absent. I'd go to jiu-jitsu. I would do things that weren't helping my family and helping my kingdom thrive. And then it had to do with gambling and crypto and just all of these other responsibilities that I was ignoring because I couldn't face the fact that I wasn't truly embodied. And so I did this massive ritual. This mug here, I had this instinct. It's a, knockoff Viking mug. It's pretty cool. But I had this instinct to fill it with water and to sit in, I've got these cool, amazing chairs sitting out the front in my living room, to go sit in one of those and to sit in it as if it was a throne. And then from NLP, I have this resource, I have this tool called anchoring, and it's called a ring of power. So what I did is I projected from my mind a ring of energy sitting on the floor in front of me. And then I started taking all of these masculine archetypes, the people that I admire, their traits, the character, their strengths, their weaknesses as well. It shows them being human. It shows them being embodied, that they can own these things. So I started putting things like Superman in there, Goku, Jordan Peterson, Carl Jung, Nietzsche. I put Superman plus the Ubermensch in there as well, and a whole host of others, but including Odin. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I have one of the most detailed tattoos ever of Odin after he hung himself from Yggdrasil for 9 days and 9 nights, after he sacrificed his eye for the wisdom to be able to read the runes, to understand everything, to be the All-Father, the All-Seer. And that was kind of the center point of that ring of center point of the ring of power. And so once I've gotten everything in there, the container was right, I was really happy with the things, the resources that I was calling upon to become embodied from a psychological perspective. And then as I stood up, I raised my mug and I said, skull. And skull means drink. So as I drank, I stepped into the ring of power, and all of the presuppositions from each of those men, I aim to embody and anchor into myself. So as you step into the ring of power, all of those traits, attributes, and behaviors are becoming a part of you, and you can trigger that anchor whenever you need to. However, what I was aiming to do was to have it as a default part of my personality in waking space. In altered consciousness, in meditation, breathwork, cannabis ceremonies, all these sorts of things, I can happily embody that. However, I wanted and needed it to become part of my everyday life as well. So it's exactly what I did. When I stepped wholeheartedly into that, I went into a visionary experience. And as I said, skull, drank, stepped into the ring of power, I felt this wave of energy wash over me. And then I blinked, and my eyes were not seeing what was around me in my home. I was seeing around a table, all of those archetypes sitting around, each with a mug in hand, looking towards me and saying skull, having a drink, and then celebrating as if I was welcomed into, that realm of masculinity. I'm not saying that each of those men are, deeply embodied or there's fictitious men in there. However, those traits and attributes, those projections of my unconscious content into that realm of the visionary space was affirming me into the king. They were saying, yes, congratulations, you are here. And considering, especially this freaking book, and Jung's messaging around signs, symbols, metaphors, synchronicities of the unconscious is symbolism. It is signs. It is metaphor. It's weird archetypal structures, archetypal shapes that are symbols that represent things. And that's in the collective unconscious for every single human. That's why Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces shocked everyone when he released that. And it kind of became that archetypal hero's journey for everyone to embody a great story, because it's from everywhere around the world. The thousands of Aboriginal tribes in Australia, the Maldives, the different African tribes, specifically the Dogon tribe. There's so many different ancient peoples and traditions that all call upon the exact same things inside of the hero's journey, because we all tap into that part of the collective unconscious when we're asleep, or when we're doing introspective work, or when we're doing plant medicines. We all have a glimpse of what's on the other side, what's underneath, what is the presupposed substrate underneath everyone in psychology. And it was a massive, massive awakening, ritual, and embodying. Who I feel now, and obviously it's an intangible, who I feel now is completely different to how I felt even a week ago when I first went through this. And it keeps getting deeper and it keeps getting more embodied. And I keep catching myself every time that I would be reactive to certain things, that instead I take a breath and I can speak truth. I can speak coherently. Clear, effective communication is one thing that I pride myself on. However, from an unconscious shadow perspective, the tyrant would come out and bark at people, specifically Rach and the kids. Like unconsciously, it'd just come out and I would snap and I'd sit there and go, what in the fuck was that? And I never had an answer for it. However, going through this ritual, going through this embodiment, like I feel like I'm home and I feel unbelievable. Honestly, this is what it is to continue doing the work. And it doesn't end. Like I had these non-dual experiences after I embodied that king archetype, as I stepped into that ring of power. Straight after, I went into meditation, specifically listening to Dan Heim's Temple of Odin on repeat. And I was gone for what felt like hours. And I snapped out of it. 20 minutes later, came into Rach and I was like, how long have I been gone? And she goes, oh, like you've been out there for, maybe 25, 30 minutes. And I was like, no, like I was just meditating and I swear I was gone for hours, if not days. She goes, no, you were here 15 minutes sort of thing. So yeah, time and consciousness and experience is interesting. There's no clear cut normal delineations that you can go, oh yeah, this is this. Like it was so overwhelming really damn quickly. So yeah, that's pretty much been my last couple of months, specifically the last couple of weeks in regards to the King archetype. There's a new Sleep Token album coming out soon on the 9th of May, which is Rach and my 10-year anniversary of our first date. It's also one of my close friends from Jiu-Jitsu's 10-year anniversary for his wedding with his wife. It's also the day that we get the keys to our new property, which is an interesting turn of events. The hero's journey begins again, and I'm about to dive headfirst into the unconscious again, into the realm of signs and symbols and metaphors, and we'll see what comes up. Moving forward, I think there's going to be a lot more psychospiritual alchemy content coming, much like I spoke about last year, but I wasn't able to hold that together. If you are spiritually inclined, if you meditate, breath work, altered states of consciousness work, you know that bringing those experiences, emotions, sensations into your body and having them be default in normal waking consciousness, you know how hard it is to uphold that vibration. You know how hard it is to continually be of that frequency, be of that energy. It was hard. It was very hard last year. And I got to this exact same place where I was like, yeah, cool, the King's here. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. I fell out of that vibration so quick. However, this time, Daddy's home. So anyway, guys, much love. Take care. Follow me to Rise Higher, and
you know what you need
comments,
to do.
anything
like,
that you wish
comment,
to see,
share this around, subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for all of the awesome things really coming out of R.Y.S.E, because we're only just getting started. Thank you so much for being here, watching another video. Much love. Take care, and follow me to Rise Higher.